Jack quietly slipped poison into the red wine, then handed the glass to his wife and made up some excuse to leave. But he didn't go far. He hid in the shadows and watched with his own eyes as his wife drank every last drop. Sure enough, it wasn't long before she collapsed from what looked like a heart attack and died. Jack put on a convincing performance of a grief-stricken husband, but the moment his family left that evening, he eagerly hopped on his motorcycle and sped off to a secluded house. The girl who opened the door was the very reason he had murdered his wife. You see, his wife wasn't just much older than him. She was also the one who had handed him his cushy job. She was domineering, and Jack had been sick of her for ages, but had no choice but to put up with it. Then a few months back, he met Lisa. Sweet, gentle, and caring. The two cooked up the whole plan together. Now all they had to do was get past the autopsy, collect his wife's massive inheritance, and they could disappear together forever. But just then, Jack got a phone call from the police. Moments ago, his wife's body had somehow vanished from the morgue. The police wanted him to come down and assist with the investigation. The news left both of them frozen in place. Had their plan been blown? When Jack arrived at the morgue, the officer told him that about an hour earlier, the night guard had bolted out of the building for some unknown reason. He didn't get far before a car struck him in the street, and now he was in the hospital, still unconscious. Surveillance footage showed him fleeing from inside the morgue, as if something had scared him out of his mind. The strange part? Every camera except the one in the main lobby had been smashed, and Jack's wife's body was gone without a trace. The officer in charge, Detective John, started questioning Jack, but faced with all this bizarre business and the death of his own wife, Jack stayed unsettlingly calm. That cold composure caught John's attention. He told Jack he wasn't allowed to leave until they got to the bottom of things. Jack, of course, wasn't having it. As they were arguing, the entire building suddenly lost power. While the officer stepped aside to check on it, a noise came from inside the morgue room behind them. Jack followed the sound in and found a metal box sitting on top of his wife's storage drawer. Inside were all of her personal effects, but oddly, one of the bags was empty. Then Jack noticed a storage locker nearby that had been left open. Curiosity got the better of him, and he stepped over to look inside. What he saw nearly scared him out of his skin. It was the very poison bottle he'd used on his wife. Before he could even process it, the lights flicked back on. Jack quickly shoved the bottle into his pocket. The officer showed up right behind him and noticed the locker had been pried open, and that the metal box was supposed to be inside it. John demanded to know what Jack was doing in there. Jack stammered that he hadn't touched anything, but after checking the inventory list, the officers realized a phone was missing. Jack had no way to explain himself. John didn't waste time arguing. He shoved Jack against the wall and patted him down, and the poison bottle turned up almost immediately. Jack frantically claimed he'd just picked it up off the floor, but that obviously wasn't going to fly with John. Just then, Jack's phone rang. John ordered him to answer it right there in front of him. It was Lisa. Before she could say a word, Jack jumped in, pretending she was his sister, saying he was busy helping the police look into his wife's missing body, and hung up. Seeing that John wasn't pressing him further, Jack said he needed to use the bathroom. The second the door shut, he called Lisa back. She'd already gone to the hospital to check on the night guard's condition, so the police hadn't been lying to him. Jack quickly told her that someone clearly knew what they'd done, and that whoever it was had been deliberately steering suspicion toward him. For now, all he could do was stay put and play it carefully. He splashed some water on his face to calm himself down, only to look up and find that the window behind him had been opened. Sitting on the windowsill was an invitation card, one he'd seen at home before, and on the back of it were the exact words from a love text Lisa had once sent him. Only the two of them should have known about that text. A chill ran down Jack's spine. Had his wife known about him and Lisa all along? He tore the invitation to shreds and threw it in the toilet. But when he went to flush, the toilet was broken. At that exact moment, the officer walked in. Jack slammed the door shut. He was seconds away from being caught, so he forced himself to fish the soggy scraps out of the toilet and choke them down, one mouthful at a time, until every last piece was gone. Only then did he stroll out as if nothing had happened. Turns out the police had made a new discovery. In the equipment room that controlled the building's surveillance and electrical systems, they found a large ventilation duct that led straight to the roof. Up on the roof, they'd spotted a fresh footprint. But there was something even weirder. Someone had messed with the calendar on the wall, setting it to March 20th, and the access code on the building's only exterior door had been changed to that same date. John asked Jack if the date meant anything to him. Jack said no out loud, but inside his head was spinning. That was the day he and Lisa had first met. He had a habit of using meaningful dates for his passwords, a habit only his wife knew about. All Jack could do was keep denying it. Suddenly the elevator broke down, and the fire sprinklers in the hallway triggered, spraying water everywhere. The group hurried toward the emergency stairwell, but Lisa called again. While no one was looking, Jack ducked into a side room to take it. He'd barely said a few words when he spotted a bracelet sitting right in front of him. Lisa's name was engraved on it, along with his home address. Then, in a flash, he saw the shadow of his wife outside the window, glaring at him through the glass. Gone the next second, Jack suddenly realized his wife might still be alive. This whole nightmare could be her toying with them. As panic set in, the sprinklers cut off. Jack hung up immediately and deleted the call log, but John had already noticed him sneaking around and confiscated his phone, though everything had been wiped, so there was nothing to find. By then, the lab results on the poison bottle were back. The substance inside was venom from a certain animal. Once ingested, it would stop the heart within 8 hours, mimicking the symptoms of a heart attack perfectly. Every piece of evidence was pointing at Jack. John ordered a transport vehicle. He was taking Jack back to the station for questioning. While they waited, Jack was locked in a holding room. He was racking his brain for a way out when he heard another sound at the window. He crept over carefully and spotted the very wine glass his wife had drunk from sitting on the sill, and his dead wife was standing right behind him. Jack jolted awake from the nightmare, but just then singing drifted out of the morgue next door. He followed the sound and unzipped one of the body bags, only to find a cell phone inside. The phone was ringing, and the caller was his wife. His hands trembling, he answered. The line went dead instantly. Then he heard movement behind him. It sounded like someone had just slipped out. Clearly, all of this was being orchestrated by someone. He scrolled through the call log. Every single call had come from his wife. He hit redial, but the voice on the other end was a waiter at a restaurant. He said he'd found the phone in the dining room. When Jack got the name of the place, it hit him like a freight train. He'd been there once with his wife, and that day, she'd been chatting awfully cozily with some older man. She told him the guy was her new lawyer. Could that man have been her accomplice? He called Lisa right away and filled her in on everything that had just happened, telling her to dig into the lawyer's background. A while later, Jack was moved to another room. John came straight out and said he believed Jack had used the substance in the poison bottle to murder his wife. Then he slid a stack of documents across the table.
Su mujer contrató a un detective hace 3 meses. ¿Le han estado siguiendo, señor?
Jack opened the file and froze. The lawyer his wife had been talking to was actually a private investigator. Jack nearly threw up on the spot. If that PI had really caught him and Lisa on camera, it was all over. Meanwhile, the police searched the investigator's home, but found nothing useful except that his computer's hard drive was missing. John immediately ordered a search of Jack's house. Jack frantically called Lisa again. He'd barely started telling her about the investigator when she cut him off. She already knew. Someone had just slid an envelope under her door, and inside was the missing hard drive. On it were photos of the two of them on dates, and worse, audio recordings of the two of them plotting how to kill Jack's wife. That's when Jack finally accepted the truth. His wife had known everything all along. She had played along with his performance every step of the way. She must have faked her death to get revenge on him and Lisa. He told Lisa to get out of there immediately. But the second Lisa ran out of her house, a car's headlights flicked on behind her and came barreling straight at her. There was a burst of static and the line cut out. Jack came completely unglued. He rushed to John and said he needed to leave right now. John didn't even hesitate before refusing. Desperate, Jack confessed everything, his affair with Lisa, the entire plan to poison his wife. But he insisted his wife was still alive. The poisoned wine that night must have been swapped. The poison bottle in the morgue, the invitation in the bathroom, the wine glass on the windowsill, the phone in the body bag. Every single one of them was a tool in his wife's revenge. He begged the police to send someone to save his girlfriend. Just when it seemed like the police might be starting to believe him, John got a call from a colleague. They'd searched Jack's house and found a handgun. They'd also found a shovel and a pair of shoes in the trunk of his car, and the shoes were a perfect match for the footprint on the roof. At the same time, the night guard at the hospital had finally regained consciousness. He told the police what had happened. That night, while he was on duty, the surveillance feed had suddenly gone black. Then came a noise from the morgue. When he went in to check, he discovered that a body had vanished into thin air. Before he could even react, a dark figure darted past him. He chased after it and found the elevator standing wide open with a woman lying inside. Then the elevator doors slid shut on their own. He grabbed his radio to call for backup, but the elevator opened again and the woman was gone. Out stepped a masked figure who raised a gun and fired at him. He ran for his life and made it out of the building. Now every shred of evidence was pointing at Jack. He had murdered his wife, then stolen her body to destroy the evidence. Jack kept insisting it was all his wife's setup. The fact that they couldn't find her body was the best proof, because she wasn't actually dead. But John had heard enough of his excuses. He glared at Jack, furious that he'd been played for a fool all night long, and prepared to haul him back to the station. On the way, another call came in. Following the route from Jack's house, they'd found his wife's body. The moment he saw her, Jack started dry heaving uncontrollably. He had been so sure she'd faked her death to frame him. But this could only mean one thing. There was someone else behind all of this, and he'd been running in circles all night long. Then John dropped another bombshell. Based on Jack's confession, they'd located Lisa's house. There was no sign anyone had ever lived there. Jack was completely shattered. He had no idea who was behind everything or where the woman he loved had gone. He couldn't bear the thought of going to prison without knowing the truth, so he turned on the officer, struck him, and ran. John chased after him, but Jack didn't get far before he collapsed to the ground. His chest seized up in agonizing spasms. John just stood over him, cold and silent, like a hunter watching prey that could no longer escape. And then John told him the whole truth. Every single one of the spine-chilling events that had unraveled Jack that night had been orchestrated by John himself, and he had done it all for one reason: to avenge his wife. 10 years ago, on a fateful night, Jack and his wife had been driving drunk and ran a red light, slamming into John's car. Instead of calling an ambulance, the two of them fled the scene without a second thought, leaving John and his daughter trapped in the wreckage. They weren't found for another full hour by a passing stranger. By then, John's wife was already gone. John pulled out a photo of his daughter. Jack stared at it and froze. John's daughter was Lisa. For the sake of revenge, Lisa had grown up and deliberately gotten close to Jack. Step by step, she made him depend on her completely. Then she nudged him toward getting rid of his wife. Working hand in hand with her father, she helped pull off the entire scheme, locking in the case against Jack as a wife murderer in front of everyone, with no room left for him to defend himself. Jack collapsed to the pavement, his chest tightening in waves. Then John delivered the final blow. Lisa had laced his water with the very same poison hours ago. Soon enough, he would die the same way his wife had, in the same hopeless, agonizing despair.